Okay, so some beers are really worth the wait, and I've been waiting for these beers to appear on the shelves for a very long time. An interesting side project from the head brewer of Galway Bay Brewery, who also has his own brewery of wild and spontaneous beers, Land and Labour, up next. Hey, welcome back to Views on Brews. I'm Brendan, and this is Land and Labour's first commercial releases. They've had a couple of beer festival releases and bits and pieces going on, but these are the two first examples that you can go out and buy in the shops. And I'm so excited because I really am interested in any brewery that's doing something interesting, different, unique, kind of like pioneering the way in Ireland at least. There are a couple of breweries that are like that. Wide Street Brewing would be another one. But this one, Land and Labour, is from Tom Delaney, who is the head brewer and owner of the company. But he is also the head brewer of Galway Bay Brewery, and they make cracking beers. And the last time I was at Galway Bay Brewery, I happened to notice a really interesting Oak Foeder, which is the Dutch word for vat, over in the corner, and a little interesting side project was going on. Somehow he's manufactured a little bit of space in the corner of Galway Bay Brewery. I'm not sure if he's still in there now, but they've moved premises since as well. So we've got Saison Decoupage, however you want to call that. But today we're going to focus on part one, I guess, of two parts of the Lunaberry, which is, okay, so it's a wild sour ale with blueberries aged for 16 months in an Oak Foeder. So the Foeders, they have one that I've seen, and it was ordered from a cooperage in Bordeaux. And the idea behind storing your wild ale in a Foeder is so that you get minimal surface area, rather than using like this, for instance, this wine barrel here. If you use a Foeder, you get less surface area of the oak, which slows down the aging process of your wild and spontaneously brewed fermented beer, so that the brewer then has more control over it while it's aging. The slower process allows it, allows all of the tannins to come from the oak, and it allows some complex sort of oaky flavors to come through. So that's the basic idea behind using a Foeder. Foeder, or however you want to pronounce it, Foeder, and the French call it Foudre, but it's a Dutch word, and it just basically means vat. So a large oak vat, basically. Basically, all it is a larger oak barrel. If you can imagine, in this barrel here, you had 225 litres, but if you had a much bigger version of this, you're going to have more area for beer to be in and less oak staves touching the actual beer. And that's what gives the brewer the extra time to play around with, and it just slows down the whole aging process. Now, spontaneous and wild brewed beer. Okay, this is a bit of like a grey area. Having not done one, but having luckily got myself some of the dregs of the actual fermentation vessel, which I got canned up and given to me kindly by the head brewer. So I've got to do one myself, but I haven't done it yet. So I'm hoping that the microbes have lasted in my fridge, but they're in a sealed can. But the idea is that you make a turbid mash, which is, without going into any great detail, turbid mashing is about bringing some of your unfermented raw wheat through to the fermentation section, so normal yeasts can't ferment this out. They can't eat it up because the sugars haven't been converted. The starches haven't been converted fully into sugars. So what that does is it leaves a whole bunch of uneaten, unprocessed sugars that are unturned into or unconverted into alcohols. But what then happens is Brettanomyces, Pediococcus and Lactobacillus get to eat those because the yeast can't. They settle out, and there are certain different yeasts that are natural in the air in wild fermentation, but you will also have Brettanomyces and Pediococcus and Lactobacillus. You get all those funky flavors, but the Lactobacillus then gets a chance to chew on all of that unfermented or unconverted starches that you've brought over from the mashing process, and it's like a 15-hour day mashing thing. It's crazy. Now, you can sour beers in different ways, but if you're doing it wild, you're basically saying, I'm going to put my beer flat in a cool ship overnight. Cool ship, the shallow square metal vessel that you allow the beer to cool down overnight in around about March and April time. And what happens is all of the natural microbes and yeasts that are in the atmosphere inoculate, you hope, the beer, and then you place all of that beer into your oak barrels or foeders, and you wait to see if fermentation happens. That's the really crude sort of way of describing it, but you're basically not adding yeast from a sachet or from a vial. You're literally adding it from the natural local environment, wherever it is. Okay, so with this being a wild sour ale, it then gets aged for a long time in the Oak Foeder. And what happens during that time is the tannins in the oak go and the oak woodiness goes into the beer, so you get that. But because you're using a larger, broader, wider barrel as opposed to, say, for instance, this wine barrel, you're getting a lot more beer in it, but a lot less surface area to beer ratio. And what that does for the beer is it slows down the aging process. It slows down the taking of the tannins and all of the natural vanillas from the oak, and you gives the brewer the chance to really carefully manipulate the aging process over several months, and in this case 16 months. I think then on top of that, this beer has then had 200 grams per litre of blueberries that have been macerated, so they've been crushed up basically, and put in for a further 2 months. Now, I don't know if that's included in the 16 months that this has been in the Oak Foeder, or if it's 2 additional months. But then what happens is it's bottled and then it's rested for another 6 months. And normally what they do is I'm not going to do it because I've had these upright, but if you turn this bottle horizontally, all of the yeast and all of the microbes or anything, the yeast just settle out, and it's a long thin layer along the line of the glass bottle, and they do that with the intention that you don't then go ahead and pour it. It's normally served from a basket with a handle so that you can just keep all of the sediment in the bottle. But we're not going to worry too much about that. We're going to take the first glass out. This has not been in a fridge, so this beer, I want to have it like more along the 12 degrees Celsius temperature range, because I want to get all the full flavors out of it. Luna, just in case you're wondering what Lunaberry is, that's not a particular berry, it's blueberries, but Luna is the daughter of the head brewer and owner, Thomas Delaney, so that's his daughter's name, Luna. Luna means moon. And yeah, I think that's it. Like, let's get into it. Like, just as a side note, like the cork and cage thing, really it's for for wines that are rested on their side, so that it's not touching a cap. You can get off flavors from the beer actually touching the cap. But really, I think it's just an aesthetic thing. You got it in a nice green bottle. It's all about the aesthetics and taking time and care. So cork and caging, wow, that's really tight on there. Let's get it open. I'm so excited to try this beer. Now, I had this one about a month or so ago, or literally when it came out. My God, that's really tough to get undone. They use a device that literally spins that closed, and it's really, really tight on this one. Okay, looks like they've got their own corks. Yeah, so the Oak Foeder from Bordeaux, I think it was, Bordeaux cooperage, and they've had it made and brought over to them, which is really cool. Water barley wheat, which will be the unmalted wheat, so that's the wheat that all of the bacteria. She's lively. Oh, really lively. Yeah, I'm going to get a lot of bits and pieces in this beer, which I didn't really want. But I'm going to have to let that settle out a little bit. I probably should have put this in the fridge. There is a lot of debris at the bottom of that bottle. In fact, there's huge amounts. You probably can't see it in the camera, but I can tell you there's big, huge lumps going through that beer. Okay, so wasn't expecting that, but let's just go with it. Yeah, so this is the type of beer that's going to have very little head on it. It's going to have a low pH range, highly acidic, I would imagine, or slightly acidic. It's got fruit in it, so there will be some sweetness. But it's going to have that sort of funky sort of character to it. And it really does. It has a Brett-like character to this beer. Now, I don't know what microbes went into this, but certainly lactobacillus and pediococcus would have soured it, and then probably Brettanomyces that all just live in the atmosphere. There is a real sort of funky, it is a kind of a Brett barnyardy kind of funky character to this beer. A bit sweaty, horse blanket, all of that kind of Brett-like character. I wasn't really sure what to expect from the beer, or whether it was just going to have this perfume of blueberries and be nothing like Brett, but it appears to me on the nose to have a really Brett-like character. But that can also be, you know, there has to be a certain amount of oak. It does have a woodiness to it, that's for sure. Bits of hay, not much of the blueberries on the nose, but anyway, let's get into this one. Slanted cheers, congratulations to Land and Labour. I'm really excited. I know very little about how these beers are produced other than what I've read. Oh, that's really, really like Brett-like character. It's 6.5%. Let's give it a go. Wow. Okay, let's give it a go. Okay, so the first thing to note is there is a really careful amount of acidity to this. What I mean by that is it's not puckeringly acidic, it is restrained. There appears to be the blueberry, the light perfume, the lightest, faintest perfume of blueberry. There's a fruit-like element from the blueberry as well. Blueberries are very perfume-like, but they're also sweet. So you get like a berry character that's going on. with that acidity, and it's so refined. It's like a golden sour with blueberries in it is the way I would describe the beer. It does have oats in it and spelt and wheat and barley. Such a sophisticated level of flavors going on in this beer. It's quite difficult for me to tell you just how nice they are. I'll just give it another go here. Medium light palate, a really nice finish of sourness. You drink the beer and it's fruity and sour, but it finishes nice and sour. Very dry. Very dry. What does it say about it on here? Yes, it does say pour carefully to not rouse the sediment. This is unfiltered, unpasteurized. It's alive, so the yeast, keep it, grow it, brew your own. Okay. So you could, grow this up and ferment your own, but I'm guessing it was bottled with an entirely different yeast for carbonation, but I'm not sure about that. This beer is a celebration of our beautiful daughter Luna and her favourite Galway grown. So these blueberries are from Galway, which is really cool. Yeah, and then the rest I've shown you. Okay, brewed and bottled at Land and Labour Galway Bay Brewery. Yeah. So let me just give this another go here. Brett-like funky character, barnyard, horsey, sweaty, stinky beer, really nice. Oh God, it has a tartness that is just kept in check, and the blueberries in it, I think, are what keep it in check. It's really well balanced with the fruit that are in it. So I think they've done a really good job of the amount of fruit that they macerated and put in it for 2 months versus the flavor of the beer itself. So I think they've done a really good job of that part of it, and I also like the sourness of the beer on top of it. So it's just a really sophisticated, it's a sipper. It's not the sort of thing that I want to just drink a whole bunch of in one go. In a minute you're going to see some of this sediment, which is really bizarre. Not very much in the way of apple, but a fraction, you might say, like a bit golden apple crispness to it. Every mouthful of this beer is just heavenly. I feel like I'm cheating it, drinking it so fast. I would love to pair this with food. This is a perfect type of beer that, because it's got such a specific profile of sour and sort of sour and fruit profile to it, it really deserves to be paired with, some kind of cheese dish. Some kind of cheese platter, some kind of selection of cheeses and crackers, and just fantastic. That beer is absolutely stunning. It's going to take me a while to get my head around what I think about the beer, but I like the fact that I know there's berries in it, and I know they're sort of more perfumey than they are like sharp, nothing like raspberries. They're just very subtle in the background and very pleasing and very it's a very good marriage between the berries and the beer, and the sourness there is just very carefully designed to not be too sour that it's like a face bending sour. It's nothing like that. it's just a very nice, dry, sour, perfumey, Brett-like character beer, and I just think it's fantastic. I really think it's absolutely fantastic. It just feels like a very, very carefully balanced beer, and that's what the art of spontaneous brewing is all about. Once you've actually fermented the beer and you're aging the beer, it's all about how clever the brewer is in terms of knowing when to take it out, when it's ready. You know, Tom must have worked out, you know, I'm going to add this amount of blueberries per litre, and I'm going to add it at this specific time. He must have worked that out as he went along, and he must have then said to himself, let's try it for a few weeks and then try the beer after that. And then he's ended up leaving it for 8 weeks or 2 months or whatever. And then he's pulled it out and bottled it and then let the bottle conditioning carry on. It's an art. It's an art, making spontaneous and wild beer all the way through the process, and it should be respected as such. So when I taste this beer, I'm trying to give it the kind of a respect I think it deserves. A nice gentle fizz, a nice sparkle, not overly carbonated, not overly sour, not overly sweet. There is like a perception of sweetness from the aroma of the blueberries. Just brilliant, absolutely brilliant beer. Okay, that's Lunaberry. I think I'm just gonna put that to one side and go straight onto the Saison decoupage. So that's my view on this brew. If you can call it a brew, it just feels like I should be calling it something else. Anyway, if you see beers spontaneously fermented and brewed by land and labour on your travels, don't pass them by, pick them up. Do what I say with all of the barrel-aged beers. It's the same with these type beers. Get two at least, and put one away and drink one straight away, and just enjoy the experience. And this might have been really a nice one to share, 375ml, but I think it might be nice to just share. So I might give my wife the other half of this glass. Anyway, cheers, thank you, sláinte, and it's on to the next one. Bye. And then